Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and day 14 of my August Alphabet Challenge. We are on to the letter N today, and you guys picked Night of the Living Dead, the original 1968 version, directed by George A. Romero. Now, for those unaware of what the August Alphabet Challenge is, I'm trying to raise money to help build a women's refuge centre in Zambia. So if you would like to donate towards that, help in any way, please do check the links down in the description box to find out a bit more information. But yeah, 1968. I've seen the beginning of Night of the Living Dead about 3 times, and all 3 times I'll be perfectly honest, I fell asleep. That was over the course of like the last 15 years or so. It's just been one of those films that I've never quite been able to get through for whatever reason, and I think it's possibly because I've always chosen the wrong time to stick it on, because this time around, I don't know if it's just because I was watching it for reviewing purposes, I stuck with it. I managed to watch it all the way through. And I gotta say, it's quite impressive. So for those that don't know, the story of Night of the Living Dead follows a bunch of people who all get caught in this house as the dead start to rise and basically eat people. Zombies, they're called ghouls in the film, not zombies, but you know, they are what we have come to know as the zombie genre. But yeah, so it's basically these 7 people all kind of converge on this house in a remote location, each trying to get away from these zombies, these ghouls, and they're stuck together and they have disagreements. They all want to go about things in a different way, and the question is, will the zombies get in and get them, or will they survive? Obviously, this was a very cheaply made film. It was certainly an independent, George Romero kind of calling in favors and asking friends to be a part of it and stuff. But yeah, what a remarkable job he does. So the version I watched is the 98 cut. That's what it says on the DVD anyway. So I got the 30th anniversary edition on DVD. Now, I started watching the 30th anniversary edition and I was like, why do these people not look like they're in the 60s? Why does this? And then I researched a bit on the internet and realised just what the 30th anniversary edition was, and also the reason it doesn't say directed by George A. Romero on it. And I was like, no. I don't want to watch that. I want to watch the proper version. So there was 2 versions on the DVD. The other one was called the 98 version. So again, having not seen the 68 version, I don't really know what differences there are in this. Clearly it's been cleaned up, because the transfer on it, considering it was just a DVD as well, the transfer was immaculate. For a black and white 1960s film, yeah, it was a brilliant transfer. It was very clear. What I will say is the music that runs throughout, which I'm guessing was added for the 98 cut. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a Night of the Living Dead expert or anything, but it certainly sounded rough. I did not like the music, and I'm pretty sure it would cut sometimes from music that had been scored for a 98 version to music that was from the original version, because there seemed to be a distinct change in tone with the music at times, where sometimes it felt like it was from the 1960s and other times it just didn't. But there's a really crappy synth score that runs over the top of it throughout that I feel is really intrusive, and it's just there far too much, and it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't go with the movie. Like I say, I'm guessing that's not the original score, but if you know any different, please do let me know. Now, the acting in this film leaves much to be desired, it's got to be said. Dwayne Jones and Judith Day, I think is how you pronounce that. They were terrible, quite frankly. They seem to be the leads, or at least they start out that way. But yeah, she is very over the top, very dramatic, very just too much, quite frankly. and he just, yeah, is very wooden. I feel like the two actors that fare better are Carl Hardman and Marilyn Eastman. I think they actually do a pretty decent job, and I was surprised to find after this when I hit Letterboxd that they haven't really done anything else. They've done a couple more things that were made by the writer or the co-writer of Night of the Living Dead, but beyond that, they're clearly not actors. It's not the profession they went off in. Certainly not in the film world anyway. Maybe theatre, I don't know, but yeah, they don't have many other credits to the name. Whereas Judith O'Dea, or whatever her name is, she does. She has quite a few credits, and yeah, that's surprising because I thought she was pretty terrible, to be honest, in the movie. Whereas I thought Eastman and Hardman did pretty decent jobs. And I could have sworn I'd seen them in other things. They have very familiar faces. There's something about their faces that kind of says, I'm sure I've seen them in something else, but apparently not. There's a few scares in this that are actually quite effective. A couple of jump scares that are quite effective. Now, I'm not that big on jump scares, but that's usually because they're fake outs, you know. Somebody goes boo and it's not really part of the horror of the situation. Whereas the jump scares in this are. So like when they first get into the house, when Judith first gets into the house, she's faced with this corpse at the top of the stairs, and she kind of comes face to face with it, and it makes her jump back. Well, there's a horror that is beset upon her. You know, she's experiencing that. It's real. It's not something it's not a fake out. So a jump scare like that, I don't mind, but it's pretty effective. You know, and the makeup on the corpse, on the face, again, is pretty well done. Bearing in mind this is 1968 and made on an absolute shoestring budget. The characters of Ben and Barbara, I don't know if it's just the performances, because as I've stated, the actors that played those two parts didn't really sell me that well. But the characters themselves annoy me. Obviously, Judith, I've already said, you know, as Barbara, her character's name is Barbara. Yeah, she just annoyed me anyway because she was so over the top. But then Dwayne Jones as Ben, he's all over the place with his character. Like at one point, he's just not very understanding. So there's this moment when he gives this really long monologue about how he got here, about his first kind of meetings with these zombies, with these ghouls as they call them. They don't actually call them zombies in the film, but yeah, and he just goes on and on and on, and you know, he's talking about his traumatic experience and how he got there, and then Barbara, who hasn't said a word since she got there to him, finally opens up. She finally starts talking, and she starts telling him about how she got there, what her experience is. And right off the bat, he's like, like she's just going on and on. And she's only just started. And again, I don't know if that's written. I don't know if that's how Romero wanted it to come off, or whether it's just bad acting. But he just comes off as a douche, really douchey. And he essentially starts telling her to shut up. And when she gets a bit more hysterical, he punches her one and knocks her out. And I'm just, yeah, it doesn't make me warm to the character at all. He comes off as a complete douchebag. And then later on, when Hardman's character starts, well, he doesn't even shout that loud. He's just very firm with Barbara. He says something at her that's very firm, and suddenly Ben gets all up in his face, like really protective. Don't shout at her, you know. And I'm just like, dude, you literally just ignored her 5 minutes ago and then punched her when she wouldn't shut up for you. So it's just, yeah, very inconsistent with this character and just not very well acted. The sound design as well at times is a little bit distracting, a little bit off-putting, because again, it feels like one of those instances where a lot of it was done post-production, a lot of it was done in the studio where that's fine. You know, it's a very low budget film. It was made on a shoestring, so you kind of expect things like that, little things like that. You can you can kind of gloss over and let slide. Other than those negatives though, the film is really well orchestrated. I think it's got a very tight script. I like Romero's direction for the most part. There are times when it feels very natural, very naturalistic, very documentary-esque. There's moments when we see news footage. There's a particular section where we see this police chief, the sheriff, who's out with a whole crew kind of hunting these things down, and he's being interviewed. And that whole section, that whole bit of news footage feels very authentic, feels very real to me. You've got guys talking over each other, and this guy's trying to interview the sheriff, and he's giving answers, but then he's noticing something off screen and just barking orders and whatnot. And it feels very real. It's very well directed. Romero does a very good job of keeping the tension. He's finding ways and situations to get these people into trouble and to create dilemmas. There's a whole kind of section in the film where the people inside the house are just arguing over whether or not to stay in the house or to go down in the cellar and block the door. And there are valid reasons for doing both. I personally would probably side with staying in the house rather than cornering yourself in. There's some nice action beats as well. Again, there's no budget for this thing, like comparatively speaking, when you look at other movies of the time, and they're blowing cars up in it and doing quite a good job. There's one moment where actually that moment when the car goes, we see inside the car and we get a flash and we cut to the faces of the people in the house, and we see the lighting kind of go white to show us that a car has exploded. And I thought that would be it, but no, we actually cut back to the car and see it explode. I thought, all right, that's pretty nice job for a film with no money. The film has a really impactful ending as well. I mean, I don't know that I'm spoiling anything here, given it's a film from the 1960s. Even I knew this going in, to be honest. But if you don't want it spoiling, move on from this point. But so the character of Ben is shot at the end of the film by the sheriff and his team. They come in, they see him at the window, and they just take him out like he's one of the zombies. And and that's how the film ends. And we end with these kind of still images that are very haunting, must be said. Are very real, but feel like they were ripped out of the newspapers. Just effective, I think, is the word. It's very effective. It's an ending that is a bit of a downer, and just has bite. So yes, the film does seem a bit dated now. It's got some really naff performances in it, some dodgy music and whatnot, and things look a bit hokey at places. But you've got to take it within the context of the time in which it was made. This film is over 50 years old now. It predates the likes of Halloween by a good 10 years, a good decade. When you view it in that context, it's quite an achievement, for this essentially young kid at the time to come out with his friends and just decide they're going to make it by themselves without any studio backing, and boom, they make something like this, which is a taut thriller that really finely edited, some pretty decent special effects in it for its day, and some moments that still genuinely scare and still have genuine impact when you watch them. So because of that, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5. I can see why it's held up in quite a high regard. I'm probably not going to watch it again. It is one of those films that I appreciate and rate quite highly because of what it's done for the horror genre, because of its place in history. But I'm probably not going to rush back and watch it anytime soon. Even so, 4 out of 5 from me. But what about you? Have you seen Night of the Living Dead? And its many different versions, of which I know there are at least 3 cuts of this film. Which one is the best? Have I watched the wrong cut? Do I need to go back and watch the untouched kind of 60s version of the film?
let me know in the comments down below. Once again, please do check out those links for the alphabet challenge, the August alphabet challenge, and if you can donate, that would be greatly appreciated. But yeah, I'll be back tomorrow with another review for this challenge. But until then, cracking.